June 15th. We're back home at the landing. Mustang number 26 is in his paddock, which has been empty and waiting for him for what feels like forever. I can't believe he's finally here. I'm not sure I want to talk about the journey back to the landing. I'm not sure who was more traumatised, me, the unshakable bandit, or Trouble himself. The journey began tense, but controlled. The Mustang trotted stiffly alongside us, like a coiled spring. I had expected him to pull and to try and get away, but to my surprise, he followed us without too much argument, despite his clear anxiety. However, the smallest thing would spook him, and a few times he squealed. It was the most horrible, heart-wrenching noise I've ever heard a horse make. It was pure terror. Bandit was a champion through the whole thing. He never bolted with the Mustang, and because of his steadfast strength, we were never pulled with him either. Despite the unpleasant experience, which I will now gladly forget, we did make it back to the landing safely. The Mustang has a section of the paddock to himself next to Tonka and Bandit. Tonka, being the unsociable boy that he is, paid him no mind, and I think Bandit by this time had had his fill, despite his patient nature. As I sit now on the pier watching the Mustang graze in his field, I'm reminding myself that this poor colt has been given up on once already. If I don't take a chance on him now, who knows what's going to happen to him? Huh, Chance. That seems like a fitting name. June 17th. The horses have finally settled into each other's company. Thank God. I was worried Chance was going to jump the fence at one point between his excitement to see the other horses and his never-ending fears of anything that enters his peripheral vision. The last couple of days I've taken to drinking my morning coffee next to the fence and having my lunch, updating my trade books, another coffee, dinner, you get the idea. I've not tried to go into the paddock with Chance yet. The reminder from Pixel Wings keeps me at the fence. Patience, time, understanding, and a gentle hand. I'm waiting for him to take an interest in me at the moment, rather than pushing him beyond his already stretched limits. If I can get him to see me as his safe space right from the beginning, perhaps it'll pay off later down the line. June 18th. Today, something magical happened. I was standing at the fence with my morning coffee, watching the boats in the distance, when I became aware of a presence at my side. With warm puffs of air, Chance sniffed at the coffee cup in my hand. Part of me wanted to stand completely stock still, for fear of shattering the moment. The other part of me wanted the young horse to see that I was a living thing that was not going to harm him, even if I moved to breathe. So I turned my head in his direction and just softly greeted him. He flinched back slightly, but he didn't bolt. He stood for just a few more seconds before the fear won out over the curiosity and he backed off again. But again, he didn't freak out. I'd call that amazing progress, and it was the most phenomenal feeling. When I returned to the paddock again throughout the day, he didn't back off like he normally does, and when I sat down this time to write in my journal, he barely even looked up. I'm not sure I'd call it trust, but I think it's safe to say whatever he feels for me right now is no longer fear. June 21st. Today was the day I decided it was time to start being more hands-on with Chance. Quite literally. Since that day at the fence where he came to me, I've been sitting on the inside of the paddock. The first day I just sat leaned up against the fence, in case I needed to jump it, since I'm not sure how he's going to react if I push him too far. Yesterday I put myself in the middle of the paddock. Chance was unimpressed for a start, but each time I did, he grazed a little bit closer. By dinner time, he'd worked up the courage to get close enough that I could tear up my bread to scatter on the ground. It appears he's very food orientated, going by the speed at which the bread disappeared, and he even got close enough that I could touch my hand to his soft pink nose. He backed off a few times, but the bread kept him close. His legs shook as he warred with himself, fighting fear for a snack. But he calmed just enough that I could quietly stroke his face. By the time the bread was gone and I removed my hand, he seemed to snap back to his senses, and he trotted off, snorting and shaking out his anxiety, the stress leaving him in great dragon-like snorts. But it was a huge step. That's why I decided that this was the morning I would try to get a halter on him and introduce a brush. I knew I wasn't going to be able to groom him properly, but we had to start somewhere. It took a great deal of patience to catch him. I was slow and cautious, but I didn't let him push me around either. When I finally did catch him, I used all my courage to be firm and confidently pull the head collar over his face, just like I saw the people from Pixel Wings do. I just stood with him for a while after that, softly praising him and offering him half of a carrot that had been waiting in my pocket for him. He wouldn't take it, but he did calm. Kinda. After tying a safety knot to the fence, I popped the half carrot on top of the fence post, and I smiled as I watched his silvery ears flip forward as he quickly picked up the snack and crunched happily on it. Slowly, quietly, I let him sniff the brush. Then I gently touched it to his shoulder. He tensed like a coiled spring once more. When I felt like he wasn't going to explode with fear, I would brush it once again just gently down his shoulder, and stop to let him see and take it all in. Eventually he calmed enough that I could kind of brush him a little bit, though I wouldn't have said he was content. I didn't want to end the session on any negative feelings, so I pulled the other half of the carrot out of my pocket and offered it to him on the flat of my hand, thinking I'd probably have to put it down for him again. But he took it from me. We stood quietly for a while, just in each other's company. Again, he shook and snorted out the stress a couple of times, but this time in my company instead of away from me. I won't lie, there was a lump in the back of my throat as he leaned into a head scratch. I think he trusts me.